They should give us some level of protection.
I guess that depends on what we need protection from.
You afraid you're gonna run into a Titan? Where's your sense of adventure?
Beware, spoiler phobes! You have stumbled into a storm of spoilers, a podcast that is also watching this show and is really trying to silver line it these days. This podcast is split into 3 sections. In the first section, we call The Calm. Neil and I will cover the 8th episode of the 2nd season of Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, titled Separate Ways, where Cora May's ability to teleport finally broke me. Then, in a short storm section, we'll use next episode's description and the events of this episode to speculate how all of this will start wrapping up in next week's penultimate episode of the season. Finally, in our 3rd segment, the Godzilla Project, Neil will finish Godzilla Awakening with reshoots, a re-edit, and some score work. Hello, I'm Dave Gonzalez.
And I'm Neil Miller, and welcome back to A Storm of Spoilers, a podcast that is still watching this show. Our upcoming schedule, as you may have surmised at this point, we are not giving up because we are committed to the bit. We have 2 more episodes of Monarch, Legacy of Monsters Season 2. Those will continue to air on Apple TV on Fridays, and this podcast will continue to come out on Saturdays. And then that takes us into the month of May. Then at some point in May, I think we're going to probably take a week or 2 off, and then we will get into our Westerosi garb and get back into House of the Dragon mode. Our plans include a little bit of rethronesing, some House of the Dragon seasons 1 and 2. And then, of course, season 3 drops in June. That'll be fun. It'll be fun to go back to something that is hopefully a little bit better than this, and or at least has more of the action. We'll see. How do you get in touch with and support this particular show? We know you want to. You can send us a raven, stormofspoilers@gmail.com. You can send us questions, corrections, theories, lore questions for the storm. You can do so about Monarch. If you are still with us on Monarch, you can do so about the Godzilla Project RPG game, which is even more entertaining, the reviews say, than the Monarch show. Or if you want to get ahead on House of the Dragon stuff, please feel free. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us 5-star review. Say whatever you want. I actually did not check Apple Podcasts this week. I'm so sorry. So if you left us one on Apple Podcasts, I will get to it next week. But we did get an email from Aaron, which I will substitute as a review this week. Which Aaron says, I listened to your Lost coverage a few years ago and then doing a rewatch and loved it. That's great. Decided to open your feed a few weeks back out of curiosity and saw you doing coverage of Monarch. Awesome. Well, not a perfect show. I think I'm enjoying more than you 2 guys are. Listening to the top of episode 6, I find it funny that I enjoyed this show a lot more than I did House of the Dragon. Only saw the first season. I totally get the lack of Godzilla, but I think these kinds of shows I tend to enjoy more of the discoveries around the lore, Axis Mundi, etc., even if character motivations aren't always the most well done. Thanks for the entertaining content and the more in-depth diving into the episodes as always. Well, listen, we appreciate you listening, Aaron. And I'm glad you're enjoying the lore of Monarch. Yep. And I hope that the parts that you enjoy will prove to be useful in the end, but we'll see. We will find out soon.
I also enjoy the lore. Sure. You and I spend several minutes every week trying to be like, what actually was the lore that we learned this week, and trying to break it down. And I think the problem that we're going to discuss a little bit this week is when lore intersects with character motivations, sometimes one sort of muddies the other, which is just a television problem. But I do like television, and I do like that they're spending a lot of money on this show being very dumb.
Sure.
And everybody on it is very attractive and is lit very well this week. I cannot complain at any of the moving images I see, but you're about to hear me break down the plot, and I can complain a lot from that section.
Absolutely.
plot driven.
But we'll come back to that. Aaron, I have one more recommendation. Get caught up on House of the Dragon, because that is next for Storm of Spoilers. You got a whole season to catch up on, and then we'll meet up for season 3, because I think there's, as a book reader, not to spoil anything, but there's some banger stuff coming in season 3, hopefully. Also, some more housekeeping business. You can get us, if you would like to view this podcast in video form, over at youtube.com/@a-storm-of-spoilers. And make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're liking the videos and the shorts. They are delightful. We also would like to credit the evolved Godzilla model by Pumpkin, which we are using under the Creative Commons license. As you know, Dave did not want to model the Godzilla himself, so we got a very cool one. And we think it's great. So check that out. And finally, perhaps most importantly, if you'd like to materially support this venture, you could join us at patreon.com/Da7e and Neil, Da7e and Neil, for more coverage of stuff, including TV shows we're watching, movies we're watching, behind the scenes deep dives of movies that we think are interesting and or that we like. This month we were doing more deep dives of movies adapted from video games. This week, Dave, for the first time, watched the 2021 Mortal Kombat film, which is a deeply stupid movie, but is also a pretty entertaining film. And we are now ready for the sequel that will be driven almost entirely on Carl Urban quips. And I, for one, am ready to see that. So join us for that Adventure Pod every week, and you get access to our Slack. And if you are in our Slack, every Sunday we are now live watching episodes of Netflix's Dark, because that is our new rewatch project. We've done Twin Peaks, we've done The Leftovers, we've just finished Hannibal, and we are in week 2 of Dark. And if you are at the small council level, which is the highest level of patron membership, you will get a podcast every week. And if you're at any level, you get access to the Slack and can join us for live watches. Dave and I are learning German and time travel rules.
It's making me insane. This is for the YouTubers. These are my dark notes. This is what they look like. I write like a serial killer.
We are back to chicken scratch. It is great.
It is happening.
So we're having a really good time with Dark. And hopefully you will join us and help me keep my lights on, literally. All right, that is all of the housekeeping. Dave, let's dive into a show that does have Godzilla in it technically this week.
It does have Godzilla in it right at the end, technically, this week. I do want to talk about some other things that happened in Godzilla Land this week, but I'm going to save it for our very abbreviated Storm section, since that one has been mostly reading an episode description. I would like to talk a little bit about Godzilla Minus Zero's new trailer in there. So if you haven't been tempted into the Storm this week or ever before, it is not so much about spoiling Monarch Legacy of Monsters as it is talking about Godzilla this week. Maybe I can tempt you into that middle section. Either way, you're here to talk about this episode. Separate Ways. Why is it called Separate Ways? Who knows? Let's retrack what happened and try to figure out what we are accomplishing this week on Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I do have some questions, Neil, where I'm just wondering exactly what happened, and you absolutely stop me at any point if you have a different read on what I think actually happened this episode.
Cool.
Old Shaw, with his device, tears out of the landscape of what could be some actual sand dunes in Australia into the false Sahara beachside in the Northern Territory. Neil, even the pictures I was having you look up last week were not anywhere near where this is geographically is on the Monarch maps. Maybe this is some sort of alt history Australia that had some ancient Titan problems that killed some major moisture.
Yeah. And it also has been confirmed by some of our Australian listeners that there are, in fact, camels in Australia. This was a point of contention for me where I was like, I don't think that's a thing. I thought camels were an African thing. That is just my Americanism, my lack of worldliness showing. Apparently camels do exist in Australia.
I will say that I was giving a lot of grace to the Monarch Legacy of Monsters team until this series of shots where he's driving through like a beach and there's green foliage and like obviously he's coming out of something that is a little bit more green that looks a little bit more like the border of the sand dunes in actual Australia. But then they sort of like hard cut and he's in this just like open sand dune desert that is right up next against the beach. I don't think that actually exists, but that is the least of the problems with geography this week on Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I think we discovered a new Bermuda Triangle right off the ports of a Northern Territory city, because I don't get how travel works this episode. Let's figure out how. Lee pulls up over a dune to see Titan X on the beach thrashing around. We punch in closer to see Titan X is healing her severed tentacle from a couple of episodes ago, while the scarabs use the sand to start building a nest for what we learn will be a Titan X egg. But we don't know that yet, so after the titles, we're at the expensive-looking Outpost 18 Command Center, where Director Barris gets a phone call from the Secretary of Defense, who is already sending... What?
I will say, you said we don't know that yet, that it's an egg. That said, when I watched this episode, I immediately recognized that, granted, I did see the tentacle coming back thing, and I was like, all right, it's clear that Titan X is in pain, but also Titan X is either constipated or giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the facial expression that I'm getting from this digital monster.
I wasn't even going off of facial expression. It's just, if you've ever seen like a sea turtle like lay its eggs, it also looks like it's just thrashing in the sand.
Yeah, like basically the shot where like Shaw comes over the sand dune and sees it, I'm like, oh, I think I know where this is going. Like, this is obviously and the migration pattern thing, I think we've kind of guessed this along the way, right? Where it's like, what are the scarabs? And like, what's the whole purpose of this migration pattern for Titan X, which is like, it's got to have something to do with like laying eggs or spreading the scarabs around. But also, if this thing sort of exists outside of time and it has a migration pattern and it's like laying eggs, why is there still only one of them? Anyway.
I mean, maybe it lays an egg and that egg bursts into a bunch of scarabs and not another new Titan. Like, sure. I guess we don't know. I'm also calling it an egg because I call it an egg in the episode. It like looks like a bundled blue glowy thing that also has like some sort of net around it. So it's in an egg sac. Mm-hmm. Like it is, of course, a made up biology. So we're making these up as we go along.
True.
Director Barris on Outpost 18 gets a phone call from Secretary of Defense, who is already sending tomahawks with nukes on them to Australia, and Director Barris chooses to take the "that didn't work on Godzilla" angle, rather than the "if anyone is going to nuke another country without warning, maybe it should be the Special Ops Titan subset of the government, not the direct U.S. military angle," which is what I would have led with, but maybe I'm nuke-minded these days, Neil. I can't imagine why.
I was mostly just distracted by how swole Director Barris is. Like, this dude is very muscular, and I didn't notice that before in like just the video call. I'm like, since when is the director of Monarch such a beefcake? What is going on? I mean, it makes
sense. He's gonna literally browbeat Tim into place, and I'm gonna enjoy that.
And then yes, the just overwhelming creepiness of the Secretary of Defense. And I think just the overtopness. And listen, this part I can, I guess, sort of forgive for being a little ham-handed, because one of the hallmarks of any good Godzilla story is that it is the American government's fault.
Yes, that's
like, whatever happens, it's the American government's fault, and usually in some nuclear way, right? Like a nuclear spill that creates Godzilla, or hitting Godzilla with a nuclear bomb multiple times that makes him worse. And so, you know, I suppose we were always destined to end up here with the American military firing a nuke at it.
It's the only time in the Monsterverse we could really deal with this, because this entire show existed after already in 2014 we don't nuke Godzilla. Mm-hmm. And then in King of the Monsters we have to nuke him back to life. in order to help us kill Ghidorah. So Monarch Legacy of Monsters, the first season was like, well, what if we already tried to nuke Godzilla? And that was sort of like a retcon of all the black and white photos we had seen at the beginning of Godzilla 2 2014. And now they're like, not only did Godzilla show up again, but it was in a non-populated area and we managed not to tell anybody about it. But maybe we nuked him again.
Sure.
And this is where we figure out you can't nuke Godzilla.
But then we don't nuke him on the coast of Australia, because I also think that's kind of a canon breaking thing, because how do we get to the events of the later movies and no one mentioned that they nuked the coast of Australia, but the monsters run off into the ocean. So you could totally nuke the middle of the ocean and no one would ever know.
Absolutely. And last week's episode broke time. So even though we don't talk about what's actually happening this week's episode, there's a possibility all this gets unwritten by Axis Mundi portal logic, or our characters get trapped there and we don't care. So let's see where we pick up. Keiko and Kate helicopter into Outpost 18 from the mystery plot village in Japan last week. Monarch Tim brings the ladies up to Director Barris, and they tell him that Old Shaw is planning to lure Godzilla to Titan X using Dr. Suzuki's device. Shaw on the beach notices a flock of birds flying above a still gyrating Titan X. He opens up the bed of his truck, and we cut back to Outpost 18. Barris is now worried that Godzilla is going to crash this party, and we cut back to Lee Shaw setting up the Suzuki device still on the beach. And at Outpost 18, the Randas learn that Titan X is just sitting there building up energy in a way similar to a Godzilla breath attack, but there's no evidence of aggressive behavior. That's when Barris lets them know about the nukes and the ticking clock. Less than 3 hours, Kate decides the two Randa women are going to fly out to Titan X and try to help it get back on its migratory pattern. How? Unclear, but put those ladies on a chopper.
At this point, I wrote in my notes, okay, so there are three options. We're going to either nuke it, we're going to call Godzilla, or we're going to talk it down.
Right.
Those are the three options for Titan X.
Nuke it. There's a whole Godzilla lore for me to explain why that happens. They have spent the past
it's
3
humanity's
episodes,
solution to a lot of these problems.
They have spent the past 3 episodes telling me that this new Suzuki device is very specifically going to call Godzilla. So I get that. What is the third plan? We're going to help it get back on its migratory route. How? You're going to pick it up and put it back? Like, I guess you're like, we're going to talk to it, but they have no evidence they can talk to it.
Yeah, like I assume Kate believes hard enough that she could just commune with it in some way,
right,
and convince it to, go back to its life or whatever, at its migratory pattern. But it's a very it's not only risky, obviously, because you have to walk up to the giant monster, but also very untested in the sense that we don't know if she actually has the power she thinks she has. I mean, I feel like we know as the audience that like she probably does, but the character doesn't know that. Like the character can't know that. That's silly.
Every sort of thing that we've learned about on this show about Kate's connection to the monster is her being able to pick up like a frequency of the monster. There's been no evidence that she is giving off a frequency or that she could communicate back, other than Titan X didn't kill her in the Sound Soul of Dad. He just killed her father. So like I get that maybe we're supposed to see this as her having like the confidence to step forward, but I do wish that as the show was throwing about a whole bunch of gobbledygook about the Suzuki device, that we spent a little bit more time with the ladies last week, instead of sort of like chasing this ancient well thing. We could have allowed them to science a little bit more and learn that Kate is also broadcasting or some such. Like, sure. I don't know.
I guess this would actually be less silly if when Kate locked eyes with Titan X, we heard some sort of telepathic voiceover.
Right.
Like, and specifically I'm thinking Baldur's Gate 3 narrator Amelia Tyler's voice as Titan X being
It
like,
seems to be in distress.
who are you? And Kate being
Yes.
able to communicate telepathically with the monster. That would actually make a whole lot more sense than whatever it is she's trying here in this episode, because this doesn't work and really only serves as sort of plot maneuvering to get her in position to be double crossed by her own brother.
Correct. And there's a whole history of this working in Godzilla, very specifically the Heisei, I believe it's pronounced, period in the 90s, had a psychic character named Miki who just like straight up helped with the Godzilla squad because she could communicate with all the things. And they would just fly her around and she'd be like, Godzilla says this. And we would be like, of course, this works.
Yeah, obviously.
So like, there's a bunch of ways in this like story world.
I mean,
previously, we've just been able to accept more information than this.
Later in the movies, there's a little girl that can like sign language with Kong. This is not stupid. I mean, this isn't any more stupid than these movies, than this story universe has already pulled off. So I don't know. Sometimes maybe this show is like trying to be too grounded for its own good.
Maybe, or whatever sort of like broadcasting back has to do with exactly why Kate in the first place. And by revealing that, that's going to like give away what they think their climax of this is. Like, I'm not exactly sure. Kate is also pregnant with a Titan X egg. And so they're able to, like, I don't know what they're trying to do here. Anyway, Kentaro helicopters into Outpost 18 from Thailand. Did he leave Thailand because he's made a deal with Isabel or because there was a Titan alert? We don't know yet.
Hard to know.
As he's walking to his room, he comes across Cora May, who learns that he visited Thailand and is very concerned the Simmons family and Apex are up to something. Kentaro goes to his room, looks at a picture of his dad, then calls Isabel and tells her he made it to Outpost 18. Shaw is still setting up the Suzuki device on the beach. He finally finishes, starts it working, then drives off his little truck as the device pulses. Kate and Kentaro meet up in the hallway, and it's obvious there's still some animosity there, so Kate tries to tell Kentaro that he doesn't need to be okay with what happened in San Soledad, which, just to recap, because it's been a while, Kentaro is butthurt that his dad died while he wasn't there, and Kate got to hold him for some reason. But also, I guess that his dad went to go save Kate when Kate went to go talk to Titan X, which seems a lot more like a Hiroshi decision, not a Kate decision, but Kentaro is mad.
Sure.
If I wanted any sort of clarification, this piece of dialogue did the exact opposite. Kentaro says, sometimes I have dreams about dad. Kate says, good dreams, and Kentaro says, no. And then they don't go down that... They don't explain what I'm supposed to get from that as a viewer, what either one is supposed to get.
The
about
dreams are bad, and that's why I'm evil now.
Yes. They continue the conversation by Kate saying Kentaro doesn't have to come with them, but Kentaro says they need to help the Titan to protect people. Considering at this point the plan is walking up to a Titan without any equipment, I'm unsure what everyone thinks they are doing still. The Randas all get back in that Monarch helicopter. This is Monarch 5-5, and chopper towards Australia. We're told this whole process leaves them with a little over 2 hours on the beach should it all go according to plan. So it seems like, hey, we should go to the beach. They all get to talk a bunch. Then they get on the helicopter. It seems like maybe it's 10 minutes to helicopter to the beach from Outpost 18.
Sure.
I don't know if that makes sense in time, but at least I'm trying to track inside the episode. In the control, here's why I want to pay attention to it. In the control center, as they're all taking off, Cora May tells Monarch Tim that she needs to speak to Brenda Holland because Apex is up to something. Isabel talked to Kentaro on Thailand. Monarch Tim rightly questions that we're doubting Kentaro because he has been trustworthy up until the show's decided he's not, but also has a lot of trust in Cora May this whole time. So he tells her he'll make arrangements and she should trust her gut. And he also says, better get going right as we cut away, which is hilarious because let's start tracking time now. On helicopter Monarch 5-5, Kentaro is almost as distracted as the pilots who are swarmed by the birds hovering around Titan X, causing the helicopter to crash, have a real hard landing. Old Shaw sees the helicopter go down and is sad he won't be able to sacrifice himself alone on this mission. Outpost 18 learns all the people from the copter are alive and sends backup for immediate evacuation. Monarch Tim tells the tech she's done a good job, and we watch her pick up the whole phone and order the evacuation because this episode needs some padding. Somewhere in the South Pacific, in what I hope to be the Godzilla temple that we see at Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla wakes up and we push in on his eye, breaking what we know is canon, but still nobody knows about it except us, the viewers. So I think we're doing okay so far.
Because unlike this podcast, Godzilla has been sleeping on the job this entire time.
Exactly. Titan X has been up. Well, and we don't know why Godzilla wakes up, it turns out at this point, because of something that happens later, but don't worry, I'll get there.
I mean, I guess, are we meant to think that he hears the signal from the Suzuki phone?
That's what we're meant to think right now in the episode.
It in the soundtrack, at least.
Right. That's what we're supposed to think now in the episode. Later on, Monarch Tim's going to say something that really frustrates me, and we will get there. Absolutely. Okay. In the endless sand dunes of Australia, Old Shaw and Keiko hike towards each other because, again, this show needs more runtime. Monarch Asset Management undisclosed location. Somewhere Korome could fly to just before the Randas, who left 10 to 20 minutes before her on a helicopter, got Titan X. This broke me, Neil. Somewhere Korome steps into a hallway and asks where Brenda is. Mm-hmm. She flew to a whole other place.
Okay.
Not Papua New Guinea. Where's the closest place this could be in the South Pacific?
Tasmania.
All right.
New
the
Zealand?
Tasmania site. I still don't like, even if
also
that's Tasmania,
Australia.
That's I like if it's.
Are we sure she's
Australia?
Not also on the ship?
Yeah, because there's like, I mean, I guess there's just a completely different aesthetic, and there's like a ceiling fan, which we haven't seen in the ship. I think she's in like a location.
You wouldn't need a ceiling fan on a ship.
I'm just saying, like, if Outpost 18 is like 10 minutes off the specific coast that Titan X is, even if she was flying to a city in Australia, it would be more than the 10 to 15 minutes it would take the other helicopter to get to Titan X.
Sure.
There's no way she gets anywhere besides to Titan X faster than the Randas get to Titan X. Anyway, it broke me.
Right.
I guess it doesn't matter because she doesn't rejoin our episode, so we could learn next week that this is actually jumping to the future, but they keep intercutting, implying it's happening at the same time, and Korome is suddenly in an undisclosed location that I think has to be undisclosed because it physically cannot be anywhere given the time frame she has to travel there.
Because it could be in Pensacola, Florida, for all we know.
Right. Given her powers, like if she could go anywhere and, she's not on our timeline, then yeah, it could be anywhere and that's fine. But then you could just say it and, let us be confused.
I guess
anyway,
I got totally distracted by this scene because of the fact that Naomi Nagata, aka Brenda, kept saying AET instead of Apex, whereas every other character calls it Apex. And I'm like, why does she keep calling it AET? Were her sides of this scene shot at a different time with a different script where they weren't calling it Apex? Or like, what the hell is that?
All right, let's deal with this all here and stop taking it beat by beat. Because I also have that back in the undisclosed locations. Brenda says something about paying a price for underestimating AET, then leaves, saying goodbye to Korome forever. So I don't even know what we accomplished talking to Brenda. Like May got to apologize to her for
Maybe. Also, what does she mean? This is the last time we're ever going to talk. Like she's going to spill the beans to Monarch and then they're going to like throw her in the ocean. What's going on here?
It seems like she has like one more debriefing and then maybe gonna go to like
witness
asset
protection
management prison or whatever. Yeah, like. But I don't think we learned anything from Brenda because Brenda was basically like, you're underestimating AET or Apex or the Simmonses or somebody. We're underestimating somebody.
Okay.
So if I track it, Korome is like,
oh no,
Kintara.
That's for sure.
Or the audience. Korome is like, oh no, Isabella talked to Kintaro. Kintaro won't tell me why. He has to go to the Titan. So I'm going to fly to talk to Brenda, who I know hasn't given me up. But I have read her transcripts and she's also not saying that Apex ordered her to do everything that she did, even though it's very obvious to me, Cora May, who was there, that Brenda was like doing this directly under Apex. But then at some point, Tressup ran away with the device in Santa Soledad. They hung out Brenda to dry. She is holding the company line, being like, I acted on my own so as to not bring down the company. She's still protecting Apex. And the question is, does she know about Tressup's like side deal with Isabel? And if so, will she tell Cora May? And the answer is no, she's going to keep holding the company line. So I don't know why we did any of this.
Right.
Okay, cool.
It's all very confusing, but hey, we got to see Brenda again.
We got to see Brenda again, and she looks great. Again, this episode very stupid. I think everyone looks great. Like even the post helicopter crash people in the sand dunes, like looks great. Kurt Russell looks great in his sand goggles.
It's just a bunch of nonsensical hotness is what it is.
Yeah. Nonsensical hotness, some really pretty good renders in like broad daylight.
Sure.
We're about to get to some like pretty great fight in half in the water with some great liquid and sand sims.
And then, some nonsensical hotness with some cool monsters in the background. Slightly out of focus.
Back on the beach, Titan X has settled down just as Kate and Kentaro get over the sand dunes to see her. Lee is reiterating to Keiko and the pilots that he's already calling Godzilla, and Keiko tells Lee about the nukes. Lee asks, what exactly is it you and Kate are trying to do? And Keiko says, get Titan X back on its migratory route. And that's not the definition of exactly, Neil. That is a very vague idea of what they're trying to do.
Right.
Everyone brings up G-Day like Godzilla attacked San Francisco and not two Mudos who had stolen a nuke. And eventually Kate decides she has to walk at Titan X. This seems to be the plan. The plot is dumb, but the actors look great in the fake desert, so I swear all this goes down easier when we're watching it. On the beach, Kate walks up to Titan X as its scarabs rebury themselves. It looks like Titan X is sleeping, but it awakes and initially looks like it's going to tentacle strike Kate, but ultimately settles down when Kate steps forward. Back at the truck, Keiko goes to distract Lee by having the same conversation they've been having for the past 3 episodes since they resolved their romance plot. Do we fight the Titans or do we treat the Titans like big, savable animals? Godzilla is swimming through the ocean coming for us. Finally, we have less than 10 minutes of this episode left. Back on the beach.
Hey,
Titan
we've only
X
been waiting
shows...
8 weeks, Dave.
We've only been waiting 8 weeks. We did get a dream Godzilla, so, we should have been thankful for our scraps. Back on the beach, Titan X shows Kate its nest and the egg it is laid and is protecting. Kate says the Titan has built a nest, and that's when Kentaro's plan is revealed. He calls Isabel, and it turns out his job was to locate the scarabs, I presume because Titan X will chase the scarabs, so you control it in a way. But instead, Kentaro says there's an egg, and the plan will still work. Tell Trissup there's an egg. Kate says this Titan is a mother, and that's why she can't leave right now. Like anyone here, Kentaro, Shaw, the U.S. military, Apex, or Godzilla would maybe change their actions based on this new information. Like maybe Monarch could be like, oh, we should protect it as a mother. But like this changes everything. It doesn't change anything, Kate.
Yeah.
It is a
no,
new
I don't even think
understanding.
it changes anything for Monarch. Who gives a shit that it, I mean, I respect.
It can't leave right now. It's a mother.
I respect motherhood in general, but we are still talking about a giant monster. So like, I don't know, man. I don't think it changes anything for anyone. I
don't think the Secretary of Defense is going to be like, oh, it's a mother and call off the nukes, which I think is maybe the most pressing problem.
What's funny is as this is happening, my first thought is, are they about to make Godzilla the bad guy here? Because Godzilla is going to show up and kill this unborn child, this unborn Titan X child. And we've waited 8 weeks for Godzilla to show up and like be a baby killer. What the hell? Like, what the hell is this show? But no, it's humans are going to steal the baby. So that's fun. At least humans are the real enemy here. But like for a second there, I was like, no way. They're going to make this show is like, not only not giving us Godzilla, but we're going to assassinate Godzilla's character here at the end, because I'm pretty sure I've seen many Godzilla movies and shows and properties and comic books and everything where Godzilla is generally regarded as the hero of the ordeal.
Well, with a roar, some familiar dorsal spikes swim towards the beach. On Outpost 18, Monster Director Barris asks Monarch Tim if Godzilla is there because of Shaw, and Tim says it's also possible he noticed that Titan X was off its course and just showed up on his own. Neil, this is the part that bothers me, because you're right. We've spent so much time with Shaw being like, I'm going to lure Godzilla here.
Mhm.
And Godzilla shows up thinking something's going on that isn't actually going on. And, does his fight thing. He's like, why'd you wake me from my nap? And, throws some fists. That's very understandable. What this is like, he woke up because he noticed Titan X was like laying an egg where she shouldn't lay an egg. And that, anyway, so we might be...
This is unauthorized Titan reproduction going on. And Godzilla is like, I am the Titan police. You are not allowed to be reproducing on this beach.
So for our lore-obsessed listeners, I'm wondering if we're story building here. If this is like a, Godzilla pre-King of the Monsters was already trying to keep people in line. Are we avoiding having to talk about like the Titan tuning device that actually allows them to talk to people that doesn't exist until King of the Monsters? Or are we trying to retcon that the season 2 Suzuki device does what we thought it did, which was call Godzilla, and instead it's going to turn out like, it mostly was there to speak through time, and Godzilla actually had a handle on this much more than we thought. Like, I'm unsure, and it just speaks to your Godzilla character assassination question, because I do like that Godzilla is here, and I do like the fight, and I kind of like that it's non-lethal, especially for Titan X's babies, but I am questioning why the show decides to give Tim this throwaway line that, at best, is like, and also maybe the past 3 episodes didn't matter in the narrative of that we are actually telling.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting about it is that I also don't understand, because I know that this makes a lot of Godzilla stories fairly formulaic, but this is not a problem for me, in the sense that usually what happens in these stories is we are introduced to a non-Godzilla monster. That non-Godzilla monster shows up, fucks up a bunch of human cities. Godzilla shows up and saves the day, right? So whether it's Mutos that steal a nuclear weapon, or an ion dragon, or Mechagodzilla, or presumably Kong for at least a little bit, or literally anything, or Space Godzilla, who knows? Ultimately, the new monster we meet has to be the bad guy. So this show has now spent 8 weeks to position us in a place where we are feeling a great deal of sympathy for Titan X. And Titan X is not the bad guy so much as is a mother and a victim. And Godzilla is the bad guy, I guess.
Well,
I mean,
manipulated by humans into fighting, well,
and this is the tightrope the show I think has to walk now in these last couple episodes, which is like, how do they weave their way through the climax of this season? And we get to the end of it and we're like, okay, humans were the bad guy, and we still got to see Godzilla and Titan X and Kong fight, and none of the monsters were the bad guy, because we have to like at least 2 of them by the end, and we were conditioned to like the 3rd one throughout the entire season.
They are building to a climax that is like Kong versus Titan X, where I'm like, why would these 2 be fighting?
Yeah, it's like, shouldn't these 2 just turn around and smash all the humans? What the hell? I am actively rooting for the humans to get got here, and I don't know if that's what they're going for.
Anyway, 6 minutes left of runtime left, so we finally have to get to it. The Apex Splinter group, led by Trislip, shows up to steal the egg just as Titan X gets off its nest to go fight Godzilla. Lee and Keiko reuse a bending tire on the beach shot that was previously used for just Lee driving, but like absolutely is here again, and try to rescue Kate and Kentaro. Kentaro wants Kate to get safely in the Apex Humvees, but Kate is sad that Kentaro has betrayed her. An Apex helicopter that is much better equipped than the Monarch ones fly in just as Titan X leaps at Godzilla, only to get a spinning tail smackdown right onto the beach. Titan X quickly gets up and smartly tries to control the head with the tentacles. The two fight on the beach as as Apex lifts the Titan X egg out of the nest with the helicopter. The helicopter flies by Titan X, who is still fighting Godzilla, but she's like, wait a minute, but Godzilla uses that angle to get her in a headlock. Godzilla kicks Titan X down and charges his atomic breath. He misses Titan X, but fries Trislip.
I mean, which is kind of awesome.
It is.
Again, the best part of this is when Cliff Curtis gets roasted.
Yep. Cliff Curtis. I
mean,
I'm
presumably
glad he got a
roasted.
paycheck.
He could still come back in the next episode and be like, haha, you missed.
I also think you could have paid a lesser actor to do that, but why not? I'm glad Cliff Curtis is getting money.
Bring the Cliff Curtis energy. Why not?
Keiko watches Kate and Kentaro drive off with Apex Splinter Group, and then her and Lee decide to get out of there. On the beach, Titan X uses the momentum from the breath dodge to get out into the surf ahead of Godzilla. Titan X chases its egg while being chased by Godzilla, and we're going to have to wait another week to see how this pans out, because that's the end of the episode. Very expensive ending with our Titan Watch. Titan X, Scarabs, an egg, which again might be a sack of eggs, and then Godzilla finally. Godzilla finally showed up.
Sure. And, Godzilla
Neil,
looks good.
Yeah.
I mean, well rested.
The bursting out of the surf shop, I like. I think they play a little bit with time and distance in like cutting back and forth from when they're running at each other and how far they actually are based on, but it could be like a long lens sort of thing that is working out. There could be more geography. All in all, I do like this fight because it's the positive part of its brevity is everything happens at a pace that feels realistic.
Sure.
I do feel like Godzilla and Titan X like wrestled on the beach for 6 minutes, and for a while it was kind of evenly matched.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was fun while it lasted. Although I will say I burst into laughter when it cut to credits because I was like, oh, right. This is like a super short episode compared to everything else that we've seen.
It's a super short episode that already spent half of its runtime in scenes not telling us anything new as far as I could tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that said, this is a super short episode. The fight is nowhere near over. So, and I've been burned by expectations before, but my expectation is that we are now in chase mode for the rest of the season, and that Godzilla, now that he's here, will be involved for the final 2 episodes almost exclusively. But again, I've been burned by expectations in the past.
I hope that there's more Godzilla. I really think I see them running into the ocean before they have to like attack, any sort of human settlement is going to help them keep Godzilla under wraps. I don't think the show is going to go far enough to have Godzilla show up on Skull Island. Like, canonically that is a place Godzilla does not go.
Sure. Here's a theory. And I mean, I guess this maybe gets us closer into Storm territory. So maybe I should save this. Do we have anything else to talk about here in the column?
Body count, Trislip, actually Godzilla, as you mentioned. Just a reminder, Titan X has only killed that boat full of Monarch people and those surfers. Sure. That is Titan X's body count in terms of...
And that's just a mother protecting her children, so... justified.
And that we're willing to nuke over that. So
Right.
I am happy that I kept body count. I thought when I started that body count would be a problem because we would have things like Godzilla attacking Japan, but it turns out that was a dream.
Yeah.
So it does seem kind of important what sort of life weighing we are going to be doing here, considering, I don't know, we had like, let's say fewer than 20 people at this point have died in this whole operation that I can tell. Because the Apex camp seems to mostly be prisoners of Monarch, extrajudicial prisoners. Let's not think about it. But I think...
And the show went out of its way, like when they infiltrated the Apex facility, to point out that the monsters they released into the wild were not predatory.
Yes. I think... we are having a very low body count, but I guess that's all we can hope for. I am strangely here, Neil. I thought I would like the not romance subplot of season 2 better. But now that we've sort of arced out who's in love with each other, I'm bored.
Yeah. Kind of liked it more when it was messy.
When the attractive people were also romantically talking about things, that was nice.
Sure.
Just attractive in the desert, that's a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
But
well, and the
maybe there's
siblings,
something going on.
were more interesting when they were kind of fighting over May.
Yeah.
Now that they're just like manipulating and double crossing each other, I don't know.
I mean, the real father's son and daughter in that Hiroshi also was a chaos agent, and at least the Randa family name is taken over. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about more what's coming up in the penultimate episode of this season, and Godzilla Minus Zero, and a cool revelation about that. All right, Neil, what's your theory?
All right,
that you had to say for the storm.
So, I do think I agree with your assessment that maybe Godzilla can't get to Skull Island, which is kind of sad because then I guess that means we can't get all three monsters together. But that also makes sense because Godzilla and Kong really don't come together until the movie. Unless this show is going to just do it and then time travel, timey-wimey wipe it away, which is still on the table, by the way. That said, there is a large, I don't know how large, fleet of American warships headed in the direction of the two monsters that have now swam out to sea. And I suppose a at-sea battle that involves two monsters and a bunch of American warships could potentially satisfy this show's goals of making neither monster the bad guy and giving us a bunch of action, where the United States Navy gets to be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm. And flea flick Godzilla off of that.
Yeah, and maybe that interaction, whatever that is, Titan X survives it, and Godzilla is rebuffed, or I don't know. Like, how does that situation where there's a confrontation at sea that involves the Navy and Titan X and Godzilla, or maybe I guess maybe Godzilla's chasing Titan X, the Navy shows up, and instead of going after Titan X, they just start firing on Godzilla, and they try to nuke Godzilla or some shit, and Titan X gets away. Mm-hmm. And then no one knows where Titan X is except for our main characters, who are like, oh, obviously she's going back to Skull Island because that's where we need the plot to go. So then that brings us back to Titan X fighting Kong in the finale. Maybe, I guess, because then at least we get to the finale of this show, and I guess Kong gets to be the bad guy who pushes Titan X into the time hole.
Yeah, get in the time hole.
Or maybe it ultimately seems like a sympathetic thing that Kong does by saving Titan X from humanity by pushing Titan X into the time hole and being like, go back to your home in Axis Mundi. We're going to seal you off because you don't belong here. Otherwise Godzilla's going to kill you and all of your babies.
Yeah. I mean,
don't know, man. I don't know where this is going.
I think that's fine. I've only seen one press image from Ends of the Earth that it does have Godzilla in a storm, but it is just Godzilla. And so I think this is likely that we're going to flea flick Godzilla as Titan X follows the egg to Skull Island. And I still think, as I mentioned last week, that if Isabel is trying to do something weird in the Axis Mundi, we have to go in through the Skull Island portal for some reason. It's one of the few portals that they know about. Apex knows about that portal. Apex knows how to manipulate that portal. It might be bad, but at least they know how to do it. It seems like how to open other portals and where the other portals are still somewhat under debate / in Bill Randa's notes. And as Keiko points out, they kind of haven't been paying attention to the notes for the 50, 60 years that they've been doing Monarch stuff. So here's what we know about next week's episode. It is called Ends of the Earth, and the description is Monarch and the team head to Skull Island. Kate tries to reason with Kentaro and stop Isabel. Shaw and Keiko search for Billy's long-lost rift. That long-lost rift one is the X factor for me. The other ones go with what I'm expecting, both from what you said and just what I would expect when we get to Skull Island. So where do we think this long lost rift is?
On Skull Island? Is that what he was looking for when he went there in the 70s?
Oh, they're gonna do some Skull Island retcon. And be like, this is where we, and then they find him and they find his they
find John Goodman.
They find John Goodman's skeleton just like embedded in the ground.
I mean, I was gonna say they can't go too far with this because obviously he died in the movie Kong Skull Island, like very clearly on screen, not off camera, died to a skull crusher. So you can't, they can't pull him out of a time hole, is what I'm saying. I mean, as far as I know.
You'd think.
One would think that you can't.
One would think.
Then again, they could pull Anders Holm out of a time hole and be like, he fell into a time hole, and now just like young Lee Shaw, we pull a copy out. That'd be fun. And then young Bill and young Keiko get to live in modern times, and we kill off Kurt Russell so that there's not a weird love triangle in season 3. Sure, fine, whatever. That sounds stupid, but I'm okay with stupid.
What's the stupidest thing? What's the stupidest thing they could pull out of the hole? A Skarsgård?
A Skarsgård. I mean, John Goodman. That would be the stupidest thing because there's no good explanation for that. I feel like you could explain away pulling out young Bill, where it's like, okay, at some point he did go in because, everybody's been in the Axis Mundi apparently at this point. So at some point he went in there and there's still a version of him in there somewhere. So they pull him out and then Keiko gets her husband back.
Young Bill, young Shaw,
Hiroshi's comes back,
in there,
and then the whole family's back together, and we still kill off Kurt Russell because Kurt Russell doesn't want to come back for another season.
Oh, okay. Well, Neil, I also wanted to ask you if you saw anything from Godzilla -0 out of CinemaCon.
I mean, I saw this teaser trailer that was released on the internet 3 days ago.
Hell yeah.
Very
I can't
exciting.
wait to see what Godzilla does in New York.
Yes.
I'm also very happy that immediately once this thing aired, all the Godzilla fans translated it as specifically as possible. -0's bigger. If we take our perspective shot of the Statue of Liberty.
Sure.
Much bigger. And then also there's a second form, which is the Godzilla that comes out of the ocean, which is not only bigger, but again could be a long lens effect, but definitely bigger appearing, but has like dorsal spikes on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And then most interestingly, there is a shot of our still alive kamikaze pilot hero flying over it appears like not Japan city with some floating debris with like blue electricity around it. What do you think's going on there?
I have no idea. What does blue electricity mean?
I mean, I guess the big debate is -0 going to bring in a second kaiju?
Ooh, that would be fun.
Are we seeing two different Godzillas when we see this sort of powered up Godzilla and a taller Godzilla? Are we seeing, it's a situation where because Godzilla or Japan was able to defeat Godzilla in -1, they get called in to help with the kaiju problem somewhere else, and we get a second kaiju that then they can't beat, so they have to bring Godzilla back for some reason.
Sure. Well, and I think
it is.
I mean, first of all,
yeah.
I will say this for anybody who hasn't seen Godzilla -0 or Godzilla -1. Yeah, that's right. Whichever one was the first one. One of my favorite portrayals of Godzilla. And I think one of the better, like, grounded portrayals of Godzilla. I also think it's my favorite Godzilla design because he's just so cool and so like thick and bulky, and there's just something about like the shoulders mostly of that Godzilla where he just looks so intense and overwhelming. In his like final form. He has multiple forms in the movie. So like it's like that one, and then like a very close second is Shin Godzilla, and then the 2014 version is under, and then all the rest of them. The other thing is that it is a fairly grounded film, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think that it is a film that tries to weave a very realistic idea of Godzilla into Japanese history. So I do kind of like this idea of them taking it and flipping it to be like, what would an American version of a kaiju be?
What would the anti-communist American government make of Godzilla showing up in New York?
Well, but first, what would the monster that shows up in America be? Eventually they have to call upon the Japanese experience to try and defeat, and then that probably doesn't go well either, and eventually they just need Godzilla to show up, right? Because again, even in Godzilla -1, Godzilla fucks shit up, but is not the hero of this. Well, Godzilla is a bit more of a villain in this particular universe. The other thing that's very exciting is that it's still set in 1949. And, we just talked about the lack of body count in Monarch. The body count in Godzilla -1 is significant. Both in the mass casualty events that Godzilla causes and the heartbreak of like losing characters you care about, that you spend time with in the film. So I am very, very interested to see, especially because the visual effects were so good in that first movie, how they recreate 1949 New York and then just absolutely roast it. So fun. Just lots of fun. Can't wait to see that on the big screen in IMAX.
Yeah, first Japanese shot movie ever shot for IMAX. So can't wait to see that this November. It sounds like we're gonna cook over it with -0.
Here's a crazy thought. And this might be a weird rights issue, but then again, they might be able to do this. Could it be Kong?
King Kong, technically.
'Cause Kong is the New York monster.
Kong's public domain.
So like, it's not Kong.
It just doesn't have Kong with electricity powers. I do think is a Toho thing. So if the floating thing has anything to do with the new guy, I doubt it's Kong.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have to see.
Or like maybe a portal to the Hollow Earth opens up in New York City and Kong comes out of it?
I think they're. If I have no, I don't think they're gonna. I don't think Toho's like, let's get it on the MonsterVerse. I don't think that. I think that's the exact opposite.
Let's do Hollow Earth here as well.
Yeah, they're like, we're the one who are winning Oscars. You should be doing what we're doing, not the other way around.
That's true. But I mean, it would be very fun if they did a version of Kong for Godzilla -1.
I do think the Statue of Liberty shot is trailer only. So because of that, I don't necessarily believe A, the scale that we're sort of assuming out of it, and B, that a non-mutated version of, because we killed -1 sort of. That was like the point of the end of -1. So like, let's say there's another monster and we have to bring Godzilla back. I would say that's how you nuke him back to life. And maybe the minute we see Godzilla, he's already the bigger one with the shoulder spikes. And we're just taking a lot from a shot that they rendered first, which is Godzilla walking by the Statue of Liberty, that they rendered to psych up their entire production and show at CinemaCon. And we're not actually going to get that shot because it's going to be a big Godzilla that's not, you know, in the old model. Either way, that model also coexisted with a 3D ride that you could ride in Japan. It was also directed by the same director, and that ride has King Ghidorah in it. So there is an existing King Ghidorah design.
King Ghidorah does have electricity powers.
He does, and is from space. It can maybe make things float, and what a way for him to come back. How many years has it been since he's been in a Toho movie? About as many as it has been since Godzilla has been in New York. It hasn't been since Final Wars, where Godzilla went there to fight Rodan. So they could do a big legacy pull here. We have spent several years of Toho Godzillas because we went from it's not called Godzilla Resurgence anymore. What was the one called before, where he's a in pain evolving monster? The 2016 Godzilla from Toho.
Oh, Shin Godzilla.
Shin Godzilla, thank you. It was announced as Godzilla Resurgence in my mind for whatever reason. So we went from Shin Godzilla to Godzilla -1, both Godzilla solo things, and then -1 won some Oscars, so maybe it's time to embrace the other half of Godzilla's legacy, which is stupid monster fights. But we will see
Fun.
As we learn more about Godzilla -0. All right, we talked about a lot of different Godzilla movies. Let's talk about the fake one as we transition into the Godzilla Project.
This alpha predator of yours, Doctor. Do you really think he has a chance?
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
All right, Neil. How about we start this week with this email from Ross? Would you like to read this to us?
Sure. Yes. This comes to us, as you mentioned, from Ross. Ross says, the production of Godzilla Awakening continues to be more fun than Monarch, even though strikingly, it too has a daddy issue of sorts woven into it. I noticed that as well. Does Godzilla naturally lead to parental issues? Godzilla was a father too, so who knows? But more to the point, as production winds down, I think it's time to really focus on the biggest part of the film, merchandising. Can we have a roll on the collectability of the merchandise? A fail gives you Jar Jar's tongue to suck on, and a win is the ultimate Lego licensed piece. And in between are perfectly serviceable figurines for boys and girls. But make sure the marketing department is on the popcorn bucket. Supposedly, the big trend finally took off in 2019 with Rise of Skywalker. But guess what else is coming out in 2019? Godzilla Awakening. As a junior marketing department associate, I'm thinking Godzilla's open maw on a chibi-sized body. I love that. Yeah, we definitely got to get a marketing role in there because, you know, as Mel Brooks taught us in Spaceballs, it is all about the merchandising.
I love it. I definitely want to do a marketing role for merchandising next week. Next week's going to be our marketing. It's also going to involve, I think, like a junket and probably a trailer if we want to look forward to what we're talking about next week. But I love this idea of rolling for like a different level of success with the popcorn bucket.
Sure.
Where like success, you get like a Godzilla open maw, like middle, you get like a Beetle Baragon where his beetle wings open up and you know, like eat out of his back. And then like failure is just like your logo on a paper bag.
Yeah, exactly. Normal popcorn bucket with just like the poster logo on the side of it.
Just the poster logo. Yeah. And then just as a reminder, as we do after the marketing, we are going to have the finale rolls where Neil will be rolling for his domestic box office, his international box office, the legacy. And those are things that will be informed by like marketing. If you have a great Lego set, sometimes that outlasts the movie, unfortunately, Neil, but always positive for you. And then a critic score, legacy and critic score will be out of 100. There isn't really a win condition. We're just trying to see how well it does.
Sure.
If you roll really poorly in your box office rolls, I think at this point you are making at minimum 10 million domestic and international.
Well, is the win condition, does the studio decide to make another one?
It could be.
We'll see.
But like that's not a number-based win decision. Like I don't have.
I guess that's true. It's more of a legendary Dave decision at the end. Like, does it make enough money and get a good enough critic score to earn itself like a sequel?
Exactly. Did you luck out and you rolled like a 105 legacy? You maxed out your legacy. And so even though we lost money on it, it's worth it because we're not going to let the Monsterverse die before King of the Monsters comes out.
Right.
So there isn't so much a win condition is I really want you to feel like Godzilla Awakening at least was a great attempt from Neil Miller. That's why I don't mind that it has daddy issues because of course a Neil Miller Godzilla movie would have a bad dad somewhere in it.
Yeah, obviously.
That's part of your brand.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of Godzilla's brand too. That's why we're so good together.
So this week is post-production week 2, the final week where you could put your movie together. We're going to, of course, have 3 roll-in counters. But first, I need some more information from you. An important decision coming off of last week's poor assembly cut roll means that editor Dave has produced a stoic Anya Taylor-Joy performance that leaves a lot of the debate about belief systems in both her father and her monsters to some dialogueless moments of Thyra reacting to certain lines. Because of your excellent visual effects rolls, most of them going into your Act 3, the pieces you need to add the poison-tipped ballista in your Act 3 conclusion, the idea of merging Thyra's father's belief system with a wrecked Roman ship out of time has already been pre-visualized into your climactic 30-minute Godzilla and Baragon fight. A lot of the stuff you are adding has more distance from the fight, where we get to see the final battle between Beetle, Baragon, and Godzilla a little bit better. You just need to add the human stuff for these reshoots, the poisoning the ballista, and the firing of it. You're also shooting the ending of the boat, dry for wet, because of how you rolled on your budget last week, but including the visitor with Thyra and her surviving Viking warriors, and then that group arrives in your post-credit scene where Titan Alert is going off in the King of the Monsters timeline. So I'm going to have you rank these 3 priorities for your reshoots period. Thyra's arc, Ballista conclusion, and the visitor / post-credit scene. Based on how you rank them, you are not going to get any negative side effects. This is more, I need to know your preference.
Got it.
But based on your preference, it is going to give you a mystery bonus score sort of based on your preference. So if you it's going to, if you prioritize one of these things, it's going to help you in either your box office, your legacy, or your critic score based on like the nature of that decision. So like Thyra's arc is tricky because you are mostly reshooting things from Act 3,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have all of your sets.
Right.
So if you're going to really go in and reshoot Thyra's arc, you're going to have to plan out a way to sort of like plant these things throughout your edit in places you don't have to reshoot.
Right.
If you want to shoot the ballista conclusion, there is a way to make it also, you sort of like plant it from the beginning. It feels very natural. It feels part of the legend. It's also the only real human contribution to the final fight after the squirrel device goes in.
Right.
So you're adding some extra stakes outside of just get off the island as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then the visitor post-credits scene is where all of your franchise connectivity goes. Initially, this was a one-off Viking versus Godzilla story. That's where the inception point of it is. As you started shooting it, you started putting more things together. Legendary's now into it. They're like, you could be part of the franchise. And this is where you can, is by having Lupita little nuggets and by putting the post-credit scene, like, you know, in Boston if you want, because you know that's where the climax of King of the Monsters is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So of those three things, what's your most top priority? What's your middle priority? And then by default, the lowest priority.
All right. This seems easy to me.
Okay.
Number one is the post-credits scene.
Got it.
Because I believe in the movie that we're shooting. I feel like the connectivity to the larger franchise is going to be awesome. And I feel like especially with the way that we finish with such a flourish in the final 30 minutes, people are going to want more of this version. So I want the post-credits scene for sure.
Got it. Number one, post-credit scene.
Yes.
And the visitor.
And in order to pull that off properly, my second priority is the ballista.
All right.
Because as you mentioned, we need a little bit more human touch to that third act fight, and the ballista is just fucking cool. Which means that
I love it.
The Thyra arc stuff is third because for two reasons. One, I don't hate the changes that editor Dave made. I think the stoic performance still works. The other thing is that we're not erasing the potential of all of the sort of deeper meaning that we could get to with this character. We're just kind of pushing it off to the sequel, right? We could come back to all of that stuff. We can have a conversation in Act 1 of a sequel with that character where she describes her evolution on her belief that she went through in the first movie with a 21st century therapist or some shit. We'll figure that out later. So it's like that's the kind of stuff that we don't need to force in this first movie, because I think the rest of the performance, the action part of the performance is really good. And Anya Taylor-Joy pulls it off with her, as I like to call it, face acting.
Yeah.
Just as
some
well
good face acting.
As if we were to say it out loud. So I'm confident that the audience will understand what's going on with her or come to their own conclusions. Either way, she's a badass.
Absolutely. All right. I love those priorities. They're going to come into play with bonuses in the finale rolls, but this week they're going to help me translate your actual rolling encounters and what you're going for as we progress through this. Here we go into reshoots. Your massive 11 weeks of possible reshoot time gives you a lot of leeway for juggling the schedules of your actors and working with your VFX supervisor to make sure that what you are shooting will match the plates and previs you have inserted into your assembly cut. Mads is here and has some crazy story about apparently being in the new Kojima video game, which he says is about walking.
Great. Can't wait to play it.
Nyong'o is here. Lupita Nyong'o is here and is chatting with your crew about sound work because she's recently gotten into narrating nature documentaries.
Awesome.
Anya Taylor-Joy chimes in about how she's doing voice work for Netflix and apparently a continuation of The Dark Crystal, which excites the older members of your crew.
Awesome.
That crew,
the
by the way,
is
is
off the charts with this whole
it's all working
entire
really good.
enterprise.
That crew is on your side because you do have a bonus D6 crew die to add to your roll on reshoots. If you don't use it on this roll, it becomes a failure token or just a +1 for another failed roll.
Okay.
But I really suggest you use it here because any success on these rolls for reshoots will become a positive modifier on your final cut roll.
Got it.
Because you succeeded. So the more better you do here, the more it rolls over to your next roll and makes your movie better because you will have successfully gotten the shots you needed and done well.
Sure.
Failure, you got to pay. The difference between your final rolls and success will be subtracted from your remaining $3.5 million budget. And if you go negative, you're going to have some conversations next week as you begin your in the red marketing.
Sure.
So Neil, I'm going to say for this, chemistry is off the charts. So I'm going to say leadership of 5, or you could muscle through with the determination of, let's say, 6.
Oh, interesting. Now, the failures, is it a scale? Like, is it any failure is just 1 million, or is it 1 million per 1 point of failure?
It is 1 million per 1 point of failure.
Okay. So the leadership is a 5.
Correct.
So like worst case scenario, and I have a 6+1 die. So worst case scenario, I rolled a 1 and I get a 2, which is 3 million off.
And then use your crew die, which is a D6.
So then that's a 3. So the worst case scenario there is I lose 2 million off my budget. Whereas determination
which still puts you in the black.
Determination, I could lose 3 million off of my budget.
Correct. And either of these success rolls over into editing.
Right.
So you could roll a 6 on determination and hit it exactly, still use your crew die, and then get a +6 that rolls over into your next roll.
Right. I still think I'm going to go the leadership die because
all right.
I got the +1 there and I can use the crew die.
So we are going to do a leadership roll that has to beat 5, and you have a +1 modifier. So we're looking for a 4 or higher. Oh, that's a natural 6. It blows up.
Yes.
And that is an additional 3. So we have 9, 10.
Plus
is
the
your
crew
leadership.
die.
So that's a +5. And you want to roll the crew die as well?
Yeah, fuck it. Let's go.
Oh, that's a 6. It blows up again. That's another 9. So 14 plus 14.
Holy shit. The chemistry is off the charts. Literally off the charts.
This next roll is not going to be as exciting as I thought it was going to be, Neil.
Rolled a 14. That's crazy.
Well, here we go. It is... What a world of reshoots go so smoothly. It is time to deal with your final cut.
We actually,
in Encounter 2.
While we were doing reshoots, we just found a bag of money in the corner
just
of the
like,
studio.
look at that.
It's crazy.
So all of your previous rolls from those reshoots go into the edit, and we're trying to able to get your priorities. So you want to definitely get that third act stuff. It looks great, but now because the visitor stuff works so well, you have a problem as you get to your final cut. 3 months ago, you had enough of the movie locked down to start approving final visual effect shots and inserting them into the film. You've been supine Peter Jackson-like on the couch in your editing suite, remote approving different edits of sequences. You begin to see Godzilla Awakening as a chain of individual sequences that lead us through the story, and by dialing in on the pacing of those different sequences, you feel like you could drastically change the movie by devoting more time to the Vikings' relationship with their own belief systems, or to the dynamic of the Vikings' willingness to fight on the group on the Monster Island. You attempt a cut that gives deference to both, but it feels muddled, and it is 2 hours and 20 minutes long after your climax of already rendered monster fighting shots that you're not going to cut. The version that focuses on the Vikings has some great performances from the named cast that you paid for. The relationship between Thyra and Rune, and what is what either is willing to sacrifice for their beliefs takes center stage, and the Renata and Christopher performances on the side add nuance and humor. But it does make the addition of our other survivors seem smaller. Like the movie begins with the Vikings being sent out on a quest, then they are sent on another quest just with giant monsters this time. In order to focus on the relationships, you also have cut some of the mini fights that happen in Act 2 and Act 3 sequences. If we're focused on the Vikings, battles where they aren't at the forefront seem like a waste of time. This cut loses the Phalanx v. Baragon sequence, which writer Dave would be very sad about. The version that focuses on the Vikings joining the Monster Island group is closer to the assembly cut where Thyra's performance is stoic, but the Visitor comes off mysterious in this cut, witnessing the Vikings' belief system parallels and yes-anding the new warriors into the final climactic battle that she cannot do herself because of the injury caused to her retrieving the squirrel nuke. The Vikings show up and straight up agree that they are dead, and this is what needs to be done. This cut showcases that your no-name hires did their jobs admirably. Maybe there's a star-making performance from someone in your Roman couple. So, Neil, I would like you to choose between these two cuts. You can mix and match what you want. This is more, you are going to, at the end of whatever you communicate to me, you would like your final cut to be, roll either a leadership for directing editor Dave into making the necessary cuts, or a creativity for coming up with some sort of melange of both. Failures are going to negatively affect your critic score, and success is going to add at least 1 dice to your box office, both internationally and domestically. So we're rolling for money, and what's at stake here is a critic score, but also the final cut of your movie. Ultimately, we know it's about Godzilla.
Right. And, that's going to be there.
Yes.
And I didn't want it to be bloated. I didn't want it to be 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Well, that's if you have both, which I don't think
we want
a great. That's not going to give you good rolls here.
Right. We do want to tighten it up.
Then again, with a plus 14 on reshoots, you could submit a 2 hour and 20 minute cut, I think, because you have almost an entire plus creativity
Sure.
die roll.
Well, I mean, maybe there's a middle ground between a 2 hour and 20 minute cut and like a 95 minute target, which is what I was sort of thinking of. Maybe there's a hour 50 minute version of this that works. That maybe brings the Baragon versus Phalanx back into play a little bit, because I do like the Viking character development early in the film.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to lose track of the good stuff we did with the Visitor, because I think she is the key to opening up our franchise potential. Even though like the Vikings obviously could come back for sequels and in other movies, I do feel like the Visitor really unlocks the potential for expanding the story.
And I think doing pivoting to the Visitor being the important thing in your cut, the thing that you want to honor, I think is a result of what you've been doing the past 2 weeks. The idea that this would be about belief and stuff is sort of where you started. And I think you shot a lot of that base stuff. So even to get the stoic cut, we kind of get the thrust of where you're going with the Vikings. Well, we don't necessarily need to dive into it.
And also reorienting so that the Visitor becomes slightly more of our POV character, I think will resonate with the audience pretty well. Because if we're getting a more stoic version of the Vikings, having that come through the lens of a character that is from a more modern time, I think will help translate that to the audience. I don't know if critics are going to like it, but again, we're not making this for the critics, we're making it for the fans. And we just need the fans to sort of get the idea long enough to keep them interested until Godzilla shows up.
Great. All right. I'm going to say your success or failure here is going to be based on your leadership. Oh man, that's gonna get that. I think that's gonna give you an extreme success, one way or the other, which means you're probably getting box office points. But let's figure out exactly how extreme. what's your max leadership die? It's 6 plus 1.
6 plus
All right,
1.
your leadership's 7. Your leadership roll is 7 that you have to hit.
Okay, but I have
Plus 14.
Plus 14, so I win.
Yes, you're rolling to. So we're at least have plus 7 to begin with. Let's see how extreme a success. So you've doubled the success. You're at extreme success. So that's 1 box office dice for each, just right off the top.
Got it.
If you are able to hit 7 again, you will get additional box office for
Crazy.
each one. Here we go. God damn it. That's a natural 6. So we'll.
Oh my God, we're going to make
Roll
$1 billion
again.
with this movie.
All right, that's a 1. Thank God.
Okay.
Okay, so just 2
That's
two
an
more
8.
box
That's
office
8.
dice.
Right?
Yes.
7
or
plus
2
1?
for each. So
Oh, yeah,
you
okay.
are at a total of 12 D4 for domestic and international, and each one of those
That's
will
crazy.
be a thing. And then if your marketing goes well, that D4 dice can just go up in straight dice. So I know we've been playing for D4, but if you become the linchpin that makes King of the Monsters possible and Legendary gets behind you, those can become D6s.
Sure.
And then your box office goes way up.
I got some marketing ideas. We'll be in good shape.
But we still have another chance to add at least 1 more dice to each of your box office scores, which is the score. Neil, who would you like to do the music for Godzilla Awakening?
Ooh. Well, there's so many good options. There's so many great composers out there. But there's a lot of, I imagine some of them are pretty expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hans Zimmer, he'd be very expensive.
Yeah, if you want like actual Hans Zimmer, yeah.
Yeah. But, maybe we could get an acolyte of a Hans Zimmer. You know what? You know who would do a great Godzilla score? Ramin Djawadi,
Oh.
I think. But he's kind of busy, but composers, they do a lot. They can fit a lot into a year for some reason or some. They just, doing one prestige television show doesn't mean that he can't also do a movie.
Yeah. All right. Let's say Ramin Djawadi's, you're targeting it for a score. What would you ideally like to be the score to be? And here's what I'm looking for when I ask that question. Are we using themes? If so, are you borrowing themes from somewhere else and incorporating them in a new way? Or are you making your own themes for your own characters? Is there like a Runes theme and a Thyra's theme? Or is it like a Godzilla theme remix and a Baragon theme from Toho? These are like sort of things. So basically, are they callbacks or new? And are there any key score moments, like a Godzilla kill shot score, like a we're about to throw the nuke into the volcano score, like a Rune realizes he's gonna die but charges Baragon?
Sure.
I'm sorry, the Dragon Guy score. What would be the key moments in your pieces?
Well, there are sort of 2 tracks that I want to focus on, or two ideas. The first is sort of an authentic and sweeping Norse vibe, right? That has that adds energy to the first 2 acts of the film, and really sort of culminates with Rune's death. And I think we want something sort of big for Rune to go out on. And I want that to feel very Viking-esque and maybe come from some of the instruments of the area and the time, and sort of feel authentic to that Viking aesthetic. And I want that to sort of transform as the movie goes along and build to the moment where Godzilla emerges, of course. And I want that to weave that vibe into a thunderous version of the Godzilla theme, the recognizable Godzilla theme. So think Viking version of Godzilla's theme. And then just thunderous is the word that comes to mind when the big fight kicks off. Because like we talk about these like last 30 minutes of this movie, I want it to be breathless for the audience. And I want them to feel it, in their bones. And I think that is going to come with a sound mix that is really sort of intense and drives it home. And, this is one of the reasons why we're trying to keep the edit fairly tight, because we want it to be sort of a roller coaster ride. And I think the score will drive that home at the end as well. And I want the, I want them to feel that as well, but like a slightly different version of it. I want them to sort of get used to sort of a Viking-esque Norse musical style, and then have a version of the Godzilla theme come through that style at the end and just sort of be a banger. Because I think every great Godzilla movie has its own version of that, and it's great.
Yeah. I love that. And the way you talk about it, I'm going to say determination of 7 to hit it on the mark. You kind of have to. If you lose, I'm going to say if you roll a 1, you can still pull it off, but it's going to take all $3.5 million.
Okay.
And the difference between, so if you roll a 1, 6 negative modifier on your legacy score because you fuck up the Godzilla theme, and I take the rest of your money.
Okay.
If you succeed, anything past 7, 1 more for your each of your box offices.
Got it.
So you just gotta roll higher than a 7 on your D10 here. Not much of a choice. But,
so I can only roll determination. I can't roll a different dice.
You know what? You're Neil Miller, man who has championed Ramon's work on Game of Thrones.
It's true. Yep.
So you could also try a reputation as 6.
Okay, so a D10 7 or a D8 of 6.
And
I'm just trying to avoid a 1.
Just trying to avoid a 1.
Let's go with the determination. What's the worst? The worst that could happen is we fuck up the Godzilla theme, and are forever known as the movie that fucked up the Godzilla theme.
That's true. Well, you already have a +5 to your legacy, so if you roll a 1, it's just going to bring you down to like a -2. So you fuck up the Godzilla theme, but they forget about it.
Okay.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
It's more that I'll take all your money on an extreme failure.
Yeah, I guess. But again, we have gotten this far without having to ask for any more money.
Correct. There is a way that you end this with basically $3 million because you get a success. And Wadi's like, great, give me $500,000. Bear McCreary tosses in a theme for your end credits, and you're off to go.
All right, let's see how this goes.
All right. So you said which one? The determination or reputation? Determination.
I'm gonna will this into existence.
That is a 9.
Oh, wow. The dice are really
So
my
more-
favorite. I should just go play Baldur's Gate 3 right after this.
You should. You really should. Today is your day. All right, Neil. I have much more work to do for my end rolls to make sure I didn't accidentally break the game with extreme success. But
we didn't
you
fuck
had
up the
a-
Godzilla theme. Yes. Honestly, the 2 biggest win conditions here for me, not associated with Harvey Weinstein, didn't fuck up the Godzilla theme.
I mean, and one was right at the beginning and one was right at the end, and I feel like they really helped you
The bookends
bring
of
it all home.
success for Godzilla
So
Awakening.
Godzilla Awakening exists. What we're going to do next week, like I mentioned, is we're going to start with the trailer.
Okay.
So there is a little homework for you in that I would like you to describe what you think the trailer is next week.
Can't wait. I love describing trailers.
I will play the rest of the game with you as we head into the marketing department, and I try to remember what my junketeering days were like. And we, of course, will be back figuring out what happens to Titan X's egg, I guess, is what we're invested in.
Oh, right. That's that whole thing.
That's why we're really doing this podcast, Neil. It's not a Godzilla Awakening podcast. It's a Monarch Legacy of Monsters podcast.
Sure.
But until then, go out there, be excellent to each other, wait in anticipation for a Norse Godzilla banger score later this year.